All right, hello everybody. FC United people. Dan Rothert here. I run Top Student Athlete Recruiting. Um, I help college coaches and college soccer players connect. I use my experience as a college soccer coach. I was coach at Bud Loris in Dubuque for almost 25 years. I coach men's and women's soccer, so have a ton of experience with that. And today we're going to do a webinar. So this is a webinar setting. We're going to talk about the current challenges in college soccer recruiting and how to overcome them. Some of you may have been on some of my webinars before. There's some of this information is repeated. If you were on some webinars earlier this fall, because there's some new NCAA legislation and things happening that are making things a little more challenging in recruiting. But I'm also going to talk about how to overcome those challenges. Maybe I have not talked about before. Um, so that is definitely part of what we're doing tonight. And we're trying to make sure that everybody has access to this. So I am recording this. Is a chat at the bottom or a Q&A. Either one will work. If you have questions throughout the night, please feel free to ask them, but maybe you want to wait till the end. I might cover some of those questions, but we'll try to go through this fairly quickly, but also give you some insight on what's going on in the landscape because recruiting has changed a lot, in my career, and I've been doing this for about 5 years. And even in these 5 years, it's changed tremendously from when I've become, kind of an advisor in this field. So we'll get to it. We'll start telling you a little bit about it, how it looks, and stuff like that. Again, just a little bit about me. I was also associate athletic director at Loris, where I oversaw recruiting for all our sports. My teams had a lot of success, um, and a lot of kids that could have, should have, would have played Division I chose to play for me at a Division III school. We went to national championship game, Final Fours, won a lot of conference championships, and so I feel like recruiting was, a big, big, big part of that, making sure we had the right people on the bus, talent wise, but also culture wise. So again, there's a lot of changes happening in the NCAA, and covers all sports. But scholarships and roster sizes are the big talking points. In the past, colleges could have as many players on their teams as they wanted. Each school made their own choices. Sometimes they left it to the coach to make the choice. Sometimes the athletic department made the choice. Um, Even in college football, they could have they could have as many players as they wanted to. Now they have scholarship limits, and so say in football, which is like the biggest thing, elephant in the room, and the biggest driver of this whole thing, they could have 85 scholarships, but they could have as many players as they wanted on the team. So they could have 50 walk-ons, and they could have a lot of players that might develop into something later on. Well, the new rule says they can have 105 players. That's the roster limit, but they can also have 105 scholarships. Well, guess what? Football is going to get those. So they're going to get 20 additional scholarships. And I'm confident every football team in the country in Division I is going to add 20 scholarships. Well, that's money. That's less revenue that they're going to get. This whole thing came out from the House versus NCAA settlement. It was a court case where some student athletes and former student athletes sued the NCAA to get some revenue sharing, and it's changing how this whole thing looks. And there's a lot more still to come on it. A lot is still undecided. But if we talk about soccer, men's and women's soccer, we're going to go down here, and they're going to have a roster limit of 28. Women used to have 14 scholarships. Men had 10, 9.9. So now they're saying you're going to have a roster limit of 28 and you can have 28 scholarships. Well, I am quite confident, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but that no one's going to have 28 scholarships. Schools can't afford to give 18 more scholarships on the men's side and 14 more scholarships on the women's side. If they go across the board, these are all the additional scholarships that they'd be giving if they met the requirements of the settlement. It's like 220 across all sports, which there's no way a school can afford that. Schools are businesses, colleges are businesses, and they need to keep the lights on and things like that. So colleges are going to be able to decide basically how many scholarships they're going to give. We're going to see some maybe give more than the maxes that they were given before. We're going to see a whole lot less, a whole lot more schools give less scholarships. We're also going to see some tiering of sports, where we might see football and basketball and maybe volleyball and baseball get, they're tier one sports and they get full scholarships and they get as many as the NCAA allows. And then you might see a second tier of sports that are treated more like Division III sports. Maybe there's no scholarships involved and things like that. Not all the answers. We don't have all the answers yet. Athletic directors and the NCAA are still hashing a lot of things out. But I know this. It's all about money, and soccer is probably not going to get as much money as everybody else. The future of Division I is maybe not what people think it is, and so we need to make sure. But we still want to maybe go to college and play soccer and be a part of that. And there still are going to be great programs at all levels, and there's going to be great opportunities. There's still going to be scholarship money out there, and there may be more at some places. But I tell you all this because there's so many changes, and we need to prepare for it. If you're a 2025 grad, you're right in the thick of it. You're a senior. You need to redefine some things, and we're going to talk about that momentarily. If you're younger, there's some things you need to do to plan ahead and get ahead of this thing. So just real quick, this is a little graph, all the levels of college soccer. Division I has 203 men's teams. They have an average roster size right now of 32. If you go across, and go to websites and count up all the kids on the rosters, the average roster size at Division I is 32. All right, they have to get down to 28 next year. And then the scholarship limits right now are 9.9. That means every school currently can give up to 9.9 scholarships. That doesn't mean they have to give 9.9. There's a team out there that I know, Division I team, that has one scholarship. They can divide up the money however they want. They can give each kid $100. I'm exaggerating there, but that's not much. And you can give up to 9.9 if your school decides that's what you want to do. Some schools, like again, with the new limits, some schools may go up to 28. I highly, highly doubt it. We might see some Power 5 teams go to maybe 20, those types of things. But we might see some go a whole lot less. Division II, there's no roster limits. Their current rosters there's 201 schools playing, 36 people on a roster. There's 9 scholarships allowed in men's soccer. There's no roster limit in the future. We're going to see team sizes stay pretty big. Division III is the biggest. There's most of those schools in Iowa. There's a lot of Division IIIs. There's 413 teams. 32 is the average roster size. So you can kind of look at this briefly, kind of see, Division I is going to have to make some cuts. Some schools, on average, if they have 32 players on a roster and they have to get down to 28, they're going to be recruiting less players. And that means there's going to be more players go to these lower levels, right? And that's going to change some things up in terms of how recruiting is going. It's the same thing on the women's side. There's currently about an average of 31 players on a women's roster. If they have to get down to 28, where are they going to go? They're going to go down to lower levels and they're going to fill roster spots here, and it's going to push players down, which means the levels of soccer in college are going to go up. We're going to have a lot better, Division II is going to get better. Division III is going to get better. NAI is going to get better. Junior college is going to get better. But, there's a lot of unknowns. It's still happening. There's a lot of things these massive changes are happening. Coaches don't know how it looks. Coaches have taken a bit of a pause through the course of the fall. They've not done a ton of recruiting, especially Division I coaches, because they just, maybe they were going down the road with a few kids and they signed a few kids, but for the most part, they're kind of waiting to see what happens here. When is this, it's supposed to take place for next year, but do they have players leave their program when the seasons are over? There's a lot of musical chairs these days. Players don't stay in one spot, especially at Division I a lot. The transfer portal is wide open. There's going to be, I just tell you all this, there's going to be less opportunities to go Division I in soccer. And we're up against the world in soccer. So, there's great players here in the U.S., but we also have international players we're up against. And basically, the transfer portal will be a huge source of recruitment. Coaches want older players. They want more mature players. If they can get a 21-year-old transfer who's played a lot of minutes already at the college level, they might go after that player. Probably will go after that player before they go after a unproven 18-year-old. They need to win. Coaches get paid to win. That's a big thing. And so when I talk to college coaches, and that's what I do on a daily basis, I talk to college coaches. They tell me, we're looking at the transfer portal. We're going to fill most of our spots with transfers. We'll probably still bring in a few freshmen, but we need to win, and we need to compete right away. And how are they going to do that with older players? I just show this picture. This was some games I watched on ESPN Plus earlier this fall, just to show roster sizes. This was Gonzaga, which is Division I in Washington. They had 34 guys dressed on their roster. And then this was Northern Colorado. Look at this bench. They had 41 players on their team. So if they get down to 28 players, and they're going to have to cut a lot of players and maybe not recruit nearly as many when people will be graduating. They're not going to fill those spots with new players, and so there's going to be a little bit of a holdup, especially this year, 2025, but into the future. These are some real emails I get in text from college coaches, or I've seen from players that have shared with me. I highlighted some of the main things. Coaches are pausing. Like I said, I wanted to let you know that 2026 is far away from us starting to recruit. There's no rules on recruiting roster sizes for coming for 2025. We need to wait and see how that does, what it does before we start looking at future classes. So there is a pause in a lot of the recruiting scene. It's still not to say, I still think coaches are looking. They're still evaluating. But I think sometimes coaches, they're going to recruit less players and things of that nature. Right here with the new NCAA roster cap, we are slowing down our recruiting for the 25 class until we figure out how this will affect us overall. But we are also trying to nail down players so we can make final decisions later in the year. So they want to see things. They want to see video updates, maybe see them play live. That's still happening. On the men's side, there's some rules changes happening too that are going to complicate things. Basically, on the men's Division I soccer, and that's the only level this is affecting. They're trying to make it more like the pro game, and so there's you can only play once a half, whereas in the rest of the divisions, including Division I women, you can play once in the first half, you can play twice in the second half. So there's going to be less substituting. People are going to rely on less players. They're going to play 14, 15 players in a game versus 18, 19, which used to be the average. So at the Division I level, there's going to be less playing time for men. So just a real quick sample that I've done before. Clemson was the national champs last year on the men's side. They had 34 players on their roster this year. Sorry. If you go to their roster, you can see, they'll have 34 players listed. Well, they'll need to have 6 less athletes for 2025. So they either have to cut or recruit less or both, depending on how things play out for their team. And that's going to trickle out down to other levels, right? This player that maybe is either cut from Clemson's roster or not being recruited by them anymore is going to go to a lower level Division I. And then that's going to take a spot from somebody else, and that player is going to get pushed down to maybe Division II. And then that Division II player is going to take a spot from somebody, and that maybe now is going to go to Division III and down the line. It's going to rise the levels of play, but it's definitely going to challenge the coaching staff and the players to make sure they find the right home. So there's definitely a trickle down effect that's going to affect things. These are some things from coaches that I've talked to. Nobody, at least, or nearly nobody, is going to get the 28 scholarships. The Power 4 may increase to above the 14 max. This is on the women's side, but not close to the 28 allowed. Some will stay with the same 14. Others will lose some scholarships. So basically, most college soccer players are paying something to go to college. That's the end all be all. All right. And it's going to continue that way. There's going to be very few full rides. Sometimes there's a full ride combination of athletic and academic money, but we're going to see, you know, each school deciding what they're going to do. And the ones with money and big time football are going to have the most ability to maybe pay for more scholarships and things of that nature. Um, so where will these players go? Like I said, they're going to go down levels. Some prospects that were Power Four will end up at lower level Division One, and then it's going to keep trickling down. But again, the levels of play are going to rise. I think the levels of play currently in college soccer are really good. It's only going to get better. So how does this impact college athletics? We've talked about some of these things. Can an athletic department afford more scholarships? Some Division I schools are going to have to reclassify. They might go Division II. They might go Division III. Some may offer more scholarships, but most will be less. Conferences and colleges may align on a plan. We might see a new division formed. I've heard the other day that maybe the ACC and the Big Ten are going to make their own conference or own soccer only year-round league, and then everybody else is on their own. So those teams won't even be involved anymore. They won't even be under the NCAA anymore. There's talks that might happen. So there's a lot changing. Most schools are going to keep soccer. Some may drop it. I'm especially worried about men's soccer on Title IX. If a school wants to go all in on women's soccer and give 28 scholarships, maybe a school that has men's soccer might decide to drop men's soccer. It might happen. I don't know. Talked about tiering of sports. And then, if they can't afford the same scholarships as other teams in their division, can they even remain competitive? Right. Those are definitely things that are going to impact things going forward. When we talk about smaller rosters at Division I, coaches having less developmental players on the team. All right. Coaches need players that are going to help them win now or they can lose their job. Coaches will have more reliance on the transfer portal. There's more players will be asked to leave them if they aren't contributing, and more prospects will go to lower levels, and maybe hope to level up. What I call leveling up means maybe you go to Division II for a year or two and go to Division I after that, or maybe you go to Division III, have a really good first year or two, and transfer up. But we will see 4,000 to 5,000 student athletes in each transfer portal, the men's and the women's, after this season. It's crazy. That's a ton of players, all levels. They'll go in there. They basically put your name in there, and that means you can get recruited. And coaches will go there and look for players who have experience and things like that. Again, the coaches are looking for internationals and transfers first, and then the musical chairs happen. I do have players that move around, have transferred after their first year, but I also have had a lot of players that were seniors that maybe caught a break because of the transfer portal. A bunch of players left the school and now they had an opening that they didn't have previously, and maybe something happens. But D2, D3, NAI will continue to recruit normally, and they'll go down the road with you, earlier than everybody else. There's a couple questions popping up, so I'm trying to read those. If you look at schools like on the men's side, in Iowa, we're in Iowa, right? And then we'll talk about Iowa momentarily. We have one Division I school in men's soccer in Iowa at Drake, right? They're not fully funded, so they don't have 9.9. I don't know their exact number, but they basically, is their funding going to go down? Probably not, because they don't have football and they're going to be okay there. But they're going to have to cut down a couple roster spots. I know that much. They're probably going to carry one less goalkeeper than they normally carry. Maybe they carried 4 goalkeepers, most teams do, and maybe one less field player. So that is, definitely on their mind. Maybe they're going to be, but I think they'll probably keep the same amount of scholarships as they had before. We'll see the Iowa and Iowa State. They're going to maybe get more because they're Power 4. UNI might go down. on the women's side. Those Iowa and Iowa State only have women's soccer. UNI only has women's soccer, but those schools, are definitely going to be affected. The NAIA schools, they can give some good money, but they get a lot of international players. We'll talk about some options here in a minute, but I'm going to basically talk about this. Too many prospects that I talk to overshoot this thing. Everybody wants to be Division One. They don't really know what that means, but we definitely want to make sure that we're not overshooting. That we cast a wide net. Have a backup plan. Have options. If you're hoping for a D1 to call, but you're not getting D1 looks, go down the road with schools that are recruiting you. There's a real thing. Go where you're loved, right? You have a much better experience if you go where you're loved versus trying to just cram your way on a roster. But if you're not getting recruited by the level that you think you are, you might have to redefine your search. Research schools that are not Division One. It might fit your priorities to reach out to. What are you looking for? Can you get into that school academically? Can you play there? Is it financially feasible for you to go there? If you don't get a scholarship or a full ride, is it financially feasible? What's financially feasible for you? Will that school set you up for future success? How much debt are you willing to take? Those are real questions that I think you need to ask yourself. If you're 2025 right now and you're a senior and you don't have options or you don't have the options you want, you can redefine your search still. There's going to be a lot of musical chairs happening, but you got to go down the road with some people, with some schools and some programs. Consider options that meet your criteria or can help you get there. Can you go D2? Can you go D3? NAIA, junior college, gap year programs are a big thing. I'm going to talk about those momentarily. It's still okay to reach out to Division One, and things might change once the transfer portal hits, but it's a long play, and you have to be honest with yourself. And D1 is probably going to be really difficult. Have an open mind. Know there's great soccer out there at all levels, and if you find a great fit that wants you, don't wait too long. Right? No matter the level, roster spots are going to be hard to come by. Other considerations. So one of the questions was about, locally, how funding works and things like that. Well, here's the thing, right? I'm going to use men's soccer for an example. Drake has 4 Iowa players, all right, on their roster. Four kids from Iowa out of a roster of 30, 31. That's not many, and being the only Division One school in the state. I think this: if Drake doesn't know about you and hasn't shown any interest in you, and Western Illinois is the other one because they recruit a lot of Iowa kids, and they might have 4 or 5. Those are the 2 biggest players in the room in the region that have Iowa players on. There's a couple scattered around the country that are Division One players, but for the most part, those are the Division One schools in our area that are recruiting Iowa players. If Drake or Western Illinois doesn't want you, I think you're hard pressed to find another Division One that does. I just truly think that the coaches know the players in their backyard the best, right? And then if you want to look far away in California or something like that, you're up against all the California kids that live in their backyard and they've seen that kid play 100 times, versus they've seen you play once or twice based on where you live and things like that. It's a bit harder. It's reality. And I live in Iowa. I'm a proud Iowan, but it's a bit of a flyover state. And I think I want to bring some reality to this. Like, hey, if Drake and Western Illinois aren't throwing offers at you, yeah, it's still okay to reach out to others, but it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder to find schools that want you. Now, there might be some really great fits. Maybe you're a really high academic kid and the Patriot League is a really good option. That's out on the East Coast. It's a good academic schools. It's almost like just below the Ivy League or something like that. Maybe that's an option and it's a little bit different than those schools. Sure, maybe there's an option there. Maybe there's some other fits that could happen based on some connections that people have and things like that. But I do think that that's a good baseline. It doesn't mean that they have to recruit you, but they have to probably, Drake and Western Illinois at least have had some talks with you or know who you are. I think that would probably be important. I don't think they have to recruit you because everyone has a little different feel of it, but I think they should probably know who you are at least, or maybe even invited you to their camp personally and those types of things, or coming to watch you play, or chatted with you on the phone. That doesn't mean you're getting recruited. It might be the beginning stages of it. Um, don't let ego get in the way. I see way too many prospects make a decision based on the fact they are worried what people think what their Instagram commitment post is gonna look like. If I don't post I'm Division 1, I'm the best player around. People are gonna think I'm crazy, you know. I hear it, I see it. I think it's hard for me to take sometimes because I want to see people be successful. And I see them go sit on the bench at maybe a Division 1 and never play. D2s, are hard to find in this part of the country. On the men's side, especially the women's side, we have a bunch up in Minnesota, um, but and some in Missouri, but some are international heavy, some aren't. On the men's side, they're a little bit more international heavy than the women's side, but there are options out there that could be good fits for the right players. And some of them have really good funding, to be totally honest with you, and give you a really good situation compared to maybe even Division 1s. I've seen Division 3s have great funding and opportunities to get recruited and things like that, and basically get scholarships or a great price. I shouldn't call it scholarships at Division 3. Maybe it's a great price. Um, so would you rather go to a mid-level Division 1 and win a handful of games and never make it to the postseason, or would you rather go to a Division 2 or Division 3 and maybe compete for big things, national championships? I've seen too many kids have the option of being on a Division 1 team, not playing, but being on a Division 1 team versus playing at a lower level in their careers and sitting on the bench at Division 1, because they went to a school where they were never going to get to see the field. There's a lot of schools out there that have great funding, give you in-state tuition. There's some schools in Minnesota, Wisconsin, around the Midwest, Missouri, Division 2s and Division 3s that will give people in-state tuition from Iowa, and then you can go there and play. St. Cloud State, Minnesota's their price tag is unbelievable. I think it's like all in with room and board and tuition. It's like they have men's and women's soccer, and it's like 17, 18,000, way cheaper than going to University of Iowa. And then you can get some scholarships on top of that for academics and things like that. Maybe even some soccer money. So there's some really good options out there. Maybe better than some of the big time, name brands, I guess I should say. I've also seen kids with D1 offers that have chosen Division 3. D1's not all it's cracked up to be. I had to play, maybe you have to pay the full freight. Maybe you're not a scholarship player and they're asking you to go to this private Division 1 and pay 60,000 a year, and you can go to this private Division 3 or a public Division 3 and maybe go for 15 or 20. Those are decisions you have to make as a family. Those are some things that I see all the time. Maybe you go to that Division 3 and you can compete for national championships. But nothing is personal in this whole thing, right? College coaches get paid to win. They have to choose if they have to choose between a 21-year-old transfer with experience versus an 18-year-old freshman. They're going to choose the older player every time. That's just the nature of it. That's how it's gone. That's how things are going right now in 2025. So if you're at 2025, I think the timing to redefine what you're doing, it's not too late, and you can still get a lot of options, but you got to cast a wide net and you got to find some schools at all the different levels that might fit the bill for you. We're going to jump into 2026 here. There is a good question. What will the signing date be for Division 1 athletes? There's not going to be a signing date anymore. So that's going to go by the wayside. They haven't named it officially, but I think you're going to be able to sign whenever you want to. A school is going to have you sign directly with them. There's not going to be an NCAA signing date, and it could be, as early as June 15th after your sophomore year. So going into your junior year, that's when recruiting can officially start. If a coach wants to sign you then, they can sign you. So that's how signing day is going to change completely too. So all of this is all impacted by that House versus NCAA legislation. So there might not be, there might be faster recruiting. There might be people trying to get you to sign early because, there right now it's been like a commitment, a handshake commitment. If you go earlier than November 13th, I think it is this year. Um, but it's just going to change into being that commitment of just being a handshake prior to that. It could be you can sign on the dotted line as a before you're even a junior. It probably won't happen to many, just the very, very top kids in the country, but that is possible. So how do you manage this if you're 2026 or younger? I know we have some younger players on here. I think you have to cast a wide net, all divisions, all levels. Understand that there's a wide variety of really good opportunities out there. Be a prospect that's wanted for more than just your soccer ability. That's a big thing. Someone a coach wants to recruit. Grades matter. Parents might like me for this one, but grades matter. Better grades make equals more options. You can get into more schools, and it means more money. Most schools offer merit money for your grades, and you're going to be able to get that merit money the stronger your grades are. Strong ACT, maybe retake the ACT. You know, I'll be honest. I mean, people say all the time, "Okay, I want to go get some private training and do some other things to get better at soccer and things like that. Maybe help get a scholarship." Well, the best guarantee for more scholarship money is maybe a better ACT or SAT score. So maybe use some of that money to do some test prep for that. I'll be, totally transparent. I had my son do it, got a much better score, and he can pretty much go where he wants to go. And he's going to get a ton of money at colleges doing that. So I think there's a lot of value in that. But grades matter. Target colleges that are good fits athletically, but also academically, financially, and socially. Listen to every coach that shows interest in you. Even if it's a school that you're not all that psyched about, I get it. I mean, there's places like that, but maybe that coach can be a reference for you down the road if you become, or maybe that coach can be somebody that can help you get recruited. They can also move, get a new job, and then that coach might call you and be like, "Oh yeah, I got a new job. I'd love you to come with." Or the assistant coach gets a new job. Listen to everybody, and you always have something to compare it to. Consider all your options, including gap year programs and possibly leveling up. Like I said, leveling up is going from, JUCO, junior college to, after 2 years, go on to maybe a Division II, Division I school, or going to play at a lower level and working your way up. If you don't know the level of play that is right for you, ask a neutral party or a college coach if they'll be willing to come assess your play. Ask the local college coach, "Hey, will you come out and assess my play?" Yeah, you might have to pay him. All right. Hey, I'll give you $100, coach. The coach at Co. If you will come out and tell me what level you think I'm at, you know, then you really have a real assessment from a college coach, a local coach that then you kind of have a starting point. It's hard for club coaches, it's hard for your coaches to say it. It's hard for me. I coach high school. It's hard for me to tell a kid on my team, "You're not good enough. They're not gonna like me," right? Um, you know, you don't want to waste your time targeting the wrong level. So if you really want to know, ask somebody to come assess your play. Um, Go see college games and assess if you can really see yourself on the field. A lot of kids go to those games, and some of the comments I've heard this year is just it's so fast, right? It's so fast. Teams press so hard, and they make it really difficult on you, and then try to force mistakes, and it's a faster game than what they're used to, and so they know they have to work on their fitness. They know they have to work on playing faster. Those are the biggest takeaways that I've heard this year. Be nimble. That know the game plan is always changing. You might see something at one school that you really like, and then it might shift how you want to look at places. You might see, might change majors that you're interested in. You might get a call from a coach you didn't think you're going to get a call from, and that changes everything. And then, so you got to be nimble with this thing too, and be able to move in the direction you need to. But you also need to reassess your game plan if you're not getting the calls you want. Have a good video so a coach wants to see you more. You know, a good highlight video makes a coach want to come see you play live. That's for sure. But good full game video. If you're looking at schools far away, having a good full game video could be a really next step because they might not be able to come see you play personally. Um, but having a good full game video might be able to, they want to see the negatives. They want to see what you do off the ball. They want to, highlights are all your best stuff. They want to see what you do, when it's not your best stuff. Don't chase ID camps. There are some ID camps that can be helpful, but I don't love every ID camp. I think there's a lot of money grabs out there. I'm going to do a future webinar, and I'll talk about that at the end. And avoid the D1 or bust mentality. Avoid that mentality of I have to be Division One. There's a lot of misconceptions about levels of play. All right, this is almost 10 years ago now, but my 2015 team, I went to 5 Final Fours in about 10-year span. Division III, but I had some on the men's side. I had some dudes that were legitimate Division I players, professionals. I had a couple guys that still play professional from this team. But here's the thing: we went to the national championship game. We beat Drake that year 3-0. I'll say that again. We beat Drake that year, the only Division I in Iowa, 3-0. It wasn't close. All right. We had 4 Division I transfers on our team. Only 2 of those started. One had been a starter at University of Wisconsin the year prior. I'll say that again. One had been a starter at the University of Wisconsin the year prior. Couldn't start for my team at Division III. 2 Division II transfers. Only one started. 1 junior college transfer. He had to play JV for me for a year before he was ready. I had 7 guys on that team that played a year or 2 on our JV team and didn't play a varsity minute their freshman year. This is a big one. Well, I had 0 freshmen play significant minutes that year. 0. We were loaded with older players. There's a reason we were in the national championship game. We had mature players. We didn't have anyone older than 22, 23, but we were mature. And even my school, Division III, we had 4 Iowans on the roster. Only 4. All right. And, I'll be honest, Iowans were hard for me when I was coaching college. It's a small pool, and kids sometimes thought they were better than Division III, and the case was they probably weren't. They weren't. I know they weren't, but they wanted more. They wanted to play Division I. But hey, I'm the best player in my area. I should play Division I. There's a big sea out there full of great soccer players, and the talent level is rising and rising and rising. And so just understand that it's really hard even at Division III. If you played in my program as a freshman, you were special. I got the kids that wanted to go Division I, but they were more important to them was to compete for national titles and be in a great culture. The biggest challenge to going to play college soccer is the transition to the game. College soccer is a pressing game. Teams don't sit back and counter. Those teams aren't winning. I mean, they might, but those teams aren't winning championships. If you have to sit back and hold on for dear life, game after game after game, you're not winning championships. Pressing takes energy and different commitment to fitness and willingness not to conserve energy, just to go. And that's what college soccer has become. So I just give this little graph. Most people think Division I is the best, then Division II, then Division III. I could throw JUCO in here. I could throw NAIA in here. The reality is what division you are is a decision by your school, philosophical decision of what you're going to be, how many scholarships you're going to give, how much money you're going to put into scholarship money. And then really that's it. You can't move up the division. You can't move down a division. If we won the national championship, we weren't moving up to Division II. That wasn't happening. But the reality is this is not right. All right. There's a lot of overlap. And if I threw JUCO in here and NAIA, there'd be even more overlap. Yes, the best teams in the country are Division I, the top teams, but there's Division II teams that could beat Division III, or beat Division I. There's Division III teams that could beat Division I. Like I said, my team beat Drake that year. We beat several Division I teams in my time. that happens. There's even last year the top team in Division 2 played the top team in Division 1, number one versus number one to start the season, um, and the Division 2 team won. So there's a lot of overlap. There's really good teams in each division, and there's bad teams in each division. If I'm being quite honest. Um, then you throw in the best academic schools, right? So the top academic schools in each, these are like the Stanfords and Notre Dames, like these Dukes, they all have really good athletic programs. Then there's like the Patriot League, and it's like in the Ivy League, those teams kind of fit in this map right here. They're still Division 1, but they're not the top teams. And then the top teams in Division 3, these are your um, Williams and Amherst and Wash U and St. Louis, University of Chicago. They're the top teams in Division 3. They're top academic schools, but they're also some of the top teams in the division. And then there's bad schools in each division too that could get beat by all kinds of divisions. And I always say this, sometimes kids would look at me and they say, "Oh, you coach Division 3," and they knew a bad kid on their high school team that played at a really bad Division 3, so they gave me like they weren't interested in playing Division 3. I understand that, but my team was way up here, and that kid was on this team way down here. If we played that team 1-on-1, it'd be 10-15-0. We'll talk about gap years. Gap year programs are getting more and more popular. These are two that I like, that I work with. eTour is in Spain. Pre-College Developmental Academy is in the U.S. They have a couple sites, one in Denver, one in Nashville. You basically go to these programs after you graduate high school. You don't burn a year of eligibility. You get to train basically like a pro. You train twice a day. In eTour, you learn Spanish. Here, you make some money, refereeing, and some other things. You full-time soccer player for a year, and you get to grow and mature as a person and a player. And then you go off and you come back and you go to wherever you get recruited to, and maybe it's a higher level because you have that year off. It can be a really cool opportunity to get better and mature. It's not for everybody, but it is on the rise because players are realizing they're up against older players in recruiting, and maybe they want to go to a certain school. They're not getting recruited by that level. That's starting to happen. If you're interested in either of those types of things, reach out to me. I can help connect you. Um, that is definitely something that's happening more and more and more. Gap years are becoming more and more popular. Positive things coming forward with recruiting. Well, the COVID year is over. After this year, the fifth year of eligibility from COVID that was given to players because they lost a season basically or had a shortened season back in 2020. That they is over after this year. So there's more roster spots potentially because of that. So you see a lot of, if you look at a lot of rosters right now, there's like graduate, fifth year senior, most of those fifth year seniors will be graduating and seniors will be graduating. So there might be more roster spots. However, rumor is that part of this House versus NCAA settlement is after next year, they might start allowing red shirts, which means players can, play a portion of the season early on still and then sit out and not burn a year of eligibility. And then they might be around for 5 years. So that might become more of an issue later on. Currently, though, the good thing is at least for 2025, I think there's going to be a few more roster spots opening up. So yeah, what I do, top student athlete recruiting. I personally help connect college coaches and prospects to find the right fits, maximize exposure, make videos, help connect kids, save time, energy, and money on the process, making sure you land at the right fit opportunities, help save money on college by knowing how that process works, helping guide and game plan this thing from start to finish and having good opportunities that fit your needs academically, athletically, socially, financially. Every family is different. Every kid's different for what they're looking for. And just really reduce stress of the process. There's tons of things you hear out there. A lot of them are, in my opinion, there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of um, things out there that are a little bit complicated. ID camps is one of them. Like you could chase your tail going to all these ID camps. I'm not a huge fan of them. I help people connect and find those right fits for those. But I am going to do an ID camp webinar just to talk about that stuff, give you some helpful hints on ID camps. You'll see a lot of like mass emails, and it sounds like you're getting recruited. And are you really getting recruited? Do you really need to go to these camps? Are they really worth it? Sunday, November 3rd. Um, it's a whole topic of its own, in my opinion. I'll be doing something that night. So, but if you would need help in this process, if you're struggling and you're a senior or junior, um, even a sophomore and you want to get going, feel free to reach out. If you want to talk and have questions, feel free to reach out personally. If there's questions you want to ask right now, feel free to throw them on the chat or the Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer them. But if you are a senior, I think it's wise, and you're not getting the looks you want, I think it's wise to redefine your search. Start thinking about the options that, some different options that maybe you hadn't thought about before. I give all of the people I work with some great ideas of schools that could be good fits based on what they're looking for. But I think there's a lot of options out there. You just have to find that one that wants you. I'll stick around for a minute or two. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them at me. Otherwise, have a great night. Thanks for joining me. Uh, Gap year, does PCDA take women? There are some women's gap years starting to happen. PCDA does not currently, but there are two that I know of. So I can certainly connect you with some of that stuff if you're interested. Send me an email if you'd like, and then I can help you with that. All right, thanks again. If you do need have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me personally. My phone number and email are on here. So thanks again.